What if the first thrones on Earth were never built, but merely occupied? Beneath the shifting sands of southern Mesopotamia, where rusted earth meets the ruins of the world's oldest cities, a collection of clay tablets preserves a memory that should have been erased. These are not poems, they are not hymns of worship. They are bureaucratic ledgers of a high-order inheritance. Every wedge-shaped mark pressed into the mud 4 millennia ago tells the same chilling story. Humanity did not invent civilization. We merely walked into a house that was already measured, already governed, and already finished. We are the amnesic heirs of a world that was functioning with terrifying precision long before our first recorded word. This is not a story of the dawn of man. This is a forensic audit of the giants who walked the earth before us and the mysterious protocol they left behind. The story begins not with an idea, but with an excavation. In 1849, Austin Henry Layard stood among the ash of the libraries of Nineveh and pulled fragments from the dirt that shattered our understanding of time. This was the Sumerian King List. It didn't open with a creation myth. It opened with an administrative fact: when kingship was lowered from heaven. Notice the language. Kingship wasn't earned through war. It wasn't developed through social evolution. It was lowered. It was a pre-existing office, an established technology of power that was handed down to humans from rulers who operated on a biological timeline that defies every law of modern medicine. In these clinical, dry accounts, the same style used to count bushels of barley, the scribes recorded reigns of impossible duration: 43,200 years for a single ruler, 28,800 years for another. For over a century, the academic machine has tried to sanitize these numbers, calling them metaphors or scribal errors. But the ancient record keepers didn't treat them as poetry. They listed these epics with the cold detachment of a warehouse inventory. To them, these were not myths. They were the technical specifications of a lost era, an era that was suddenly, violently interrupted by the flood. The flood in Sumerian records is not a Sunday school allegory. It is a hard stratigraphic line. When we dig into cities like Eridu and Shuruppak, we find it: a thick, sterile layer of clean silt that separates one version of humanity from the next. Below the silt, the impossible reigns of the non-human governors. Above the silt, the shorter, decaying lifespans of mortal men. But here is the anomaly that keeps historians silent. The world that re-emerged after the waters receded was not a primitive restart. It was a reconstruction. The rebuilt cities carried forward a fully formed mathematical system based on the number 60, the same code we still use to measure our circles and our hours today. They possessed an astronomical science capable of predicting eclipses for centuries. They had a medical understanding that included complex neural surgery. They spoke of the ME, the fundamental software of civilization, as something that was given or revealed, never invented. If humans didn't write the original code of our society, who did the ancients believe was the architect? In the earliest records, before later religions turned them into distant gods, they were known as the Anunnaki. They do not appear in the texts as beings of magic, but as beings of governance. They are administrators, hydraulic engineers, and measurers of time. They don't perform miracles, they issue decrees. They settle water rights and establish the agricultural calendar. The earliest Sumerian sources treat them as a physical, present governing elite that withdrew from the world after the last Great Reset. They didn't die. They simply transitioned from active rule to a status of distant observation, leaving us with the keys to a machine we are still trying to understand. This pattern of inheritance from the superior is not confined to the deserts of Iraq. It is a global synchronization of memory. In Egypt, the Turin King List identifies the Zep Tepi, the first time when the Neteru, the gods, ruled the land for thousands of years before the first pharaoh was ever crowned. In the Indian Puranas, the Yugas describe vast cycles of time where divine governance gradually diminishes as the biological frequency of humanity drops. In Mesoamerica, the Popol Vuh tells of the wooden men and the mud people, previous versions of our species that were deleted before the teacher gods arrived to install the final script. Across every isolated continent, the story is identical. A non-human intelligence established the foundations of the world, a catastrophe occurred, and humanity was left to rebuild from the fragments. It's as if we are the descendants of a shipwreck trying to rebuild an advanced vessel using only the memory of how it used to look. Consider the technical evidence of this inheritance. In 1881, the translation of the Venus tablet of Ammisaduqa revealed that ancient Babylonian astronomers were tracking the 584-day cycle of the planet with a precision that required centuries of observation. How did a supposedly emerging society possess data that spanned epochs? They claimed they inherited it from the observations of Anu and Enlil. They were copying files from a library that was already ancient in their time. Look at the architectural ghosts in our history. In Eridu, the deepest layer contains a sophisticated shrine dated to 5400 BC. Over the next 3 millennia, the people built 16 versions of that temple, each one placed with absolute geometric precision atop the ruins of the last. They weren't experimenting with design, they were obsessively maintaining a sacred blueprint that had been established at the very beginning. Someone had defined the geometry of the earth long before we knew the earth was round. This is why the word most frequently used in Mesopotamian rebuilding inscriptions is Jebel, meaning to restore, to make as it was before, not Jebel, to build. Innovation was seen as a failure of memory. Perfection was in the past. To the ancient mind, progress was not moving forward. Progress was a desperate attempt to climb back up to the peak of the knowledge that was lost. The silence from the academic world is not a result of a lack of proof, it is a result of the cost of truth. To admit that civilization is a series of installations would mean admitting that we are not the masters of our destiny. It would mean recognizing that our most foundational technologies, law, agriculture, math, and writing, are hand-downs from a source we cannot name. We are currently living in a cycle that feels unique to us. We believe our digital network and our atomic mastery are the first peaks, but the clay prisms of Istanbul and the papyrus scrolls of Turin tell us otherwise. They warn us that there were others who sat where we sit, who knew the secrets of the stars and the flesh, and who believed their empires were eternal. Their reward was to be erased by the very planetary cycles they once measured. We are not the innovators of the 21st century. We are the custodians of a deteriorating inheritance. The ruins we study are not the start of the climb. They are the graves of those who reached the summit before us. As we stand in the shadow of our own ecological and technological crises, the question is no longer, where did we come from? The question is, when will the next succession begin? The clay tablets are screaming a warning. The lights have gone out before, and every time the lights return, a new king is lowered from heaven, and the black-headed people begin to copy the old writings once again, hoping that this time they will remember enough to survive the next silence.